simply because in this quest for success, nothing stands in man's way. All rivers run dry. Soon the birds won't fly, the mountains will be no longer high. And then
And welcome back. Well, teachers in Tobago are upset over their contracts and leave of classification, among other issues. We are now joined by Ttuta's Tobago officer, Braden Roberts. Mr. Roberts, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you and your team. Good morning to the viewers as well.
Well, Mr. Roberts, teachers vex in Tobago this morning.
And for far too long, there are some of these issues that persons should have been able to take up and start working with. I know that we have one of the former Tobago officers in the assembly as well, should be part of the team. But some of these matters, it's not just a Tobago matter, it needs national intervention as well. So I trust that the minister and the prime minister and his team, they would hear the cry this morning.
What are some of the main issues affecting teachers in Tobago?
All right, so I want to start with the classification of leave. We have a system where if a teacher goes beyond 14 days sick leave, they would have to send any day, 2 days, 3 days a week to Trinidad to be classified. Now, we have a system where Trinidad, at every meeting, they have no documents for Tobago. When we go to the division would say they would send. They would even give me evidence as to the date they would send, email conversation they would have had. But the ministry meeting, nothing from Tobago. For years, we have been advocating for betterment for the leave classification for teachers in Tobago. Now, what happens when your leave is not classified? Your increments cannot be processed because you don't have continuity of service. There's something that needs to be addressed. If you retire, you will not be able to get your pension sorted. So leave classification has serious implications for these teachers. But to me, the ministry either have a lack of care, and I would say both the division and the ministry, because it's about a 20-minute flight between Trinidad and Tobago, but documents are continuously lost. I guess it's on the end. I don't know where these documents are, but these two entities need to come together. We have persons from since 1991, 2007 have leave from since those times that are not being classified. Now, I would say Tobago has the capabilities. We do the maternity leave in Tobago, so they need to have the devolved function to have Tobago be able to classify this leave. In the meantime, the ministry needs to give attention to these leave that is being sent. Too many times, teachers are waiting years to have simple things done. And I would just throw in, it's the same thing with name change. A teacher gets married, they need to send the name change request to Trinidad, which takes years before it comes back.
But you know, sir, from what you're saying there, to me, it would seem that that is a very simple problem to address.
Well,
Set up
in Trinidad,
an office in Tobago. Not so?
It's the will, you know. It's the will of the leaders. So when this was even brought to the CPO, this was brought to the permanent secretary, and everybody has, it's a good idea because I spoke to the chief administrator, I spoke with the assistant secretary, and no one is opposed to it, you know. But it's the will to get it done. I mean, they just these parties need to come together, which was the submission of the CPO back then. Once the division and the ministry are in agreement with the needful to be done, it's something that they can work with. There's nothing to debar progress in this particular matter, but it's the will of the leaders to get it done.
Yeah. What are some of the other issues?
All right, so let's quickly go to the contract teachers. Now, we had the situation in the late 90s where we moved away from the junior school and the senior school, and we had 5-year school and 7-year schools. The government, or I would say the different governments, THA, national government, they did not do the needful to deal with the establishment of school. When I say the establishment, I speak to the number of teachers assigned to a particular school. So what they would have done in Tobago, the THA had a short term, and I say short term in quotation marks, to hire persons on contract until they increase the establishment. Now, the establishment is something that is budgeted for. So it's not that the division could just hire any amount of teachers. There's a particular establishment for each school. Now, they need to go to cabinet to have that increased so they can have sufficient number of a teaching staff to deal with the program of a school. Now, in addition to moving from the junior school and the senior school, they built new schools. And we have a situation, for example, in Speyside Secondary, you have 27 teachers on contract when you have 26 teachers in service. Now, a contract teacher cannot go on any study leave. They cannot go on any scholarship. There's no upward movement for that person. They are fixed in that particular position. Now, there are limitations for the school. Now, these persons cannot take up middle management positions. So you'll have persons in a school 10, 15 years and would never be able to be a head of department or a dean. So all that wealth of experience that they're accumulating, they cannot give that additional quality to the school.
It's really going in vain.
In service. Yes. And what we also have now, principals need the help. So they are asking some of these teachers to take up internal acting, where you're going to be doing the job without getting any pay. We have the division which will express their willingness to work on this particular matter. And there isn't that stick-to-itiveness where they start up something, they do some research, and then it falls down again, and then administration change, and somebody else start up something, and it falls down.
But why is it that teachers or some teachers in Tobago are being given contracts? Is it that it's a cost-cutting exercise to decrease costs as it relates to teachers?
I would break it down to laziness. Now, it needs to, the THA needs to submit a case to the cabinet to have the establishment increased. If they don't do that, they would have no other option but to hire persons on contract, because there are certain budgeted positions in the public service and in the teaching service. So if they don't have that increase at the level of the cabinet, they can only hire persons on contract. And the THA, they start up something, it fall down. But I was in a meeting with the chief secretary, and it was said, it is Ttuta fault why it is the way it is now. And I am making sure that statement will never come out of anyone from the THA's mouth in the future. So I'm giving my very best to ensure that I do the advocacy to have the THA, and I would have submitted, I would have done some research. I checked the schools in Trinidad. It's a unique thing to Tobago schools, because they would increase their establishment as needed. It's the THA to do their job. So I would have done some of the research. I presented some documents to the administrator, to the assistant secretary, and expressed my willingness to work with them to have something submitted to cabinet.
But is this having an impact on the morale of teachers and on education in Tobago?
Most definitely, and then they're blaming Ttuta because they want a way out. Now, a group of these teachers took the division to court, but the court, if you have to hire me to wash your vehicle, the court can't tell you if to hire me permanently or to give me a contract. So they weren't successful in having the court give a determination as to have them in service. What they were able to get was the interest on the gratuity and that kind of a thing. But yes, they are deflated where these things are concerned. It's like their voice is just being heard and then tossed aside. The division needs to do the needful, and I'm also hoping that the national body at Ttuta will be able to meet with the Prime Minister and his team. So at least as a THA, and we work on that aspect on this side, by the time it goes down to cabinet, we all have the understanding and the buy-in to make the necessary changes for contract teachers in Tobago. Now, I would quickly say, these teachers, they can't even waste time going to TTMF to get any mortgage. And these contracts, it don't have that security or tenure to afford you the ability to improve your lifestyle. So it's something that we need to do as of now. And I'm not saying next 2-3 years. This is for this year. This is something I would like to have accomplished this year. So the division, as it's worked out, I'm willing to work with them. Ttuta is willing to work with them. And I'm hoping that the national body, the Prime Minister and his team, have that opening ear when we reach out to further advocate on this matter.
So the new school term has really just begun. It's a new year. What are some of the other challenges affecting teachers in Tobago, and how has the new school term been proceeding?
Well, we have been lacking in Trinidad and Tobago that level of that vision, that foresight as to where we want to take education. And I would say in Tobago, the executive been busy out in fires. So we have schools that have infrastructural issues. So they have not been able to really implement new ideas and to treat with the overall problems of the education system. So they would have spent a lot of their time, their finances, trying to treat with the infrastructural issues. So we have not made any other progress, I would say, in the shortcomings of the education system. In Tobago, we try our very best to work with what is afforded to us while we advocate for better. So our teachers may not have been the ideal situation in the schools, but they give up their best. And that's why I'm out here giving up my best, because the situation for them is not ideal, but we ask of them to keep fighting for our students, because if we look at the crime rate, it's not for us to improve the police service to run down these students when they get big enough. It's to mold them now. So there are a lot of kinks in the system, but our teachers are trying their best. But we need to have our leaders attend to their needs. A lot of them have outstanding increments and gratuity, but we see political submissions. I saw the Chief Secretary in November stating that education is worse off in these outstanding payments and they're going to work on those things. I have not seen anything to date. I don't know if we have to wait until next November before we see any action on these things. So our political leaders, we need to do right by our teachers. In the meantime, I continue to encourage our teachers to do their best while we advocate for their betterment.
But how have the children been doing? Because what happens with teachers, it is going to affect the education of students. How have they been doing?
Well, you see, we have a curriculum that is very robust there, so it's very difficult for a teacher to tailor certain things to each particular child's need. So in the main, our children, I would say they're coping. There are a lot of persons have the literacy issues and so forth. And if you have a reading challenge, even the mathematics and the science would be a challenge to you. So we have those difficulties. The diagnostic on the island does not give a good report as to where we are. But until we put systems and restructure, and we had the submission of a Tobago-centric curriculum, we need to institute some of these things where we can have a little reform to our education to make it more meaningful to our students. But the short answer, they are coping. I don't think we are excelling as we should be.
Mr. Roberts, thank you very much for speaking with us this morning, sir.
And it's always my pleasure to be on the program, and I thank you all for the platform for us to be able to advocate for the betterment of our members. Anytime,
sir. Thank you very much. So now let's take a look at this image captioned, "A mango tree sunset." This is nice, eh? Is that a starch mango tree? I hope it is. We're coming back.
Wisdom and ingenuity, working in accord, simply to afford such inventions as thermonuclear warfare and environmental warfare.